Hi, this is Selena Van Bryglen. I'm a hydrologist at the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, and today I'm here to give you your 2023 Alaska Breakup Outlook. Breakup for the state of Alaska is running around 2 to 3 weeks late, and at this time we're just asking people to monitor conditions and prepare for breakup and the possibility of flooding. We're asking people to create a communication plan, both on your personal level with your friends and family, as well as on a community level. Asking you to prepare your family and pets, an emergency kit, prepare your home, be able to move belongings to higher ground, also be able to move your vehicles, and just to be prepared to be notified of possible flooding. So when we are looking at breakup, we are talking about breakup on the major interior rivers in the state of Alaska, the Yukon, the Kuskokwim, the Koyukuk, the Noaa, the major rivers which freeze multiple feet thick and have a large snowmelt pushed with them. When we are anticipating the probability of flooding, there are three main factors that we look at. The first is the snowpack, or the amount of snow which is accumulated over the winter. The second is the ice thickness, and with it, the strength. And then the third thing, and this is the most important thing, is the spring weather patterns, and most specifically, how warm we have gotten, how quickly. So the temperature in late April and early May. So looking at our past winter's snowpack, we have an above average snowpack in the state of Alaska, as well as the Yukon Basin. It does share some similarities with the April 2022 snowpack because those were both above normal. However, last year's snowpack was record-setting, whereas this year's snowpack is simply above normal. For example, the upper Yukon Basin is at 113% of normal compared with 160% of normal last year. The central Yukon is 122% compared to almost 200% of normal last year. And the Kuskokwim Basin is 150% based on limited data, which is very similar to how it was last year. Also, snowpack in the basins that drain the Kotzebue Sound are well above average, including the Kobuk and the Buckland River. As well, the Matanuska-Susitna Basin is mostly above average, with the exception of the Chulitna, west of the Parks Highway, with stations reporting below average snowpack. Also, some of the lower elevation sites, the YK Delta, South Central, as well as the North Slope are all below normal. Then looking at this product, this is a model data of snow. So it is showing that we have above normal snowpack in the Alaska range, sort of the western Brooks Range, as well as the Seward Peninsula, and into the upper Yukon as well. Ice conditions, ice conditions across the state are generally a little bit below normal to around average. There are a few notable exceptions, and these are places that the Weather Service is paying a special attention to throughout the breakup season. And these are locations which have abnormally thick ice. Those places are the upper Yukon between Eagle and Circle, where they had high freeze-up stages, as well as fall freeze-up jams. The Buckland River also had a similar situation where they have a lot of thick ice. And there's also an ice jam that is between Kowskag and Aniak. So a handful of locations are places that have some pretty abnormal ice conditions and have a higher flood threat. Just wanted to remind everyone that the ice conditions are changing rapidly with the spring temperatures, and to always remember to think twice on ice and to be safe. Moving on towards temperatures, it's no surprise that it has been cold the month of April. These are temperatures which are departures from normal. You can see throughout the vast majority of the state that we have between 20 to 15 degrees below normal, in the interior, over the Brooks Range in southwest Alaska. So statewide, it has been a cold April. And what that means is that we still have not yet melted a lot of the snowpack that we would have melted by late April. And looking forward at our temperature outlook, we're expecting temperatures to remain below normal for sort of the southern half of the mainland through the second week of May. Looking at the village flood potential, we just wanted to highlight that due to the high snowpack as well as the later breakup, that statewide there's a greater likelihood of flooding on these major interior rivers. But particular attention should be paid to the communities of Buckland on the Buckland River, of Circle on the upper Yukon, and for Aniak and Kalskag on the Kuskokwim rivers. The breakup outlook as far as the timing is we are between 1 and 2 weeks late for the vast majority of the sites that we monitor. On the eastern half of the state, we're between 5 to 7 days late, and on the western half, we're roughly 6 to 9 days late. Where we are right now is across the state. Most of the rivers are very much frozen. We're starting to see a little bit of melting in the far reaches of the upper Yukon, but most of our sites are still well frozen. Just a little bit of a snapshot of current conditions around the state. Starting upstream of Alaska, the Yukon River at Dawson, where the Klondike River comes into the Yukon, those conditions are still bright white, or seeing very little melting so far. Then headed downstream to the Fresh Eyes on Ice camera at the Yukon River at Eagle, just across the border. Still seeing white ice, very no changes quite yet. Further downstream, the Tanana at Fairbanks, still a lot of very competent ice, also have a good bit of snow that's on the banks. And the Nenana Ice Classic, I've got a photo from what is current as well as a week ago, and you can see very little change either on the snowpack on the hillside or in the condition of the ice on the river. Some satellite images from the Kuskokwim River at Nikolai. This was taken on April 21st as the last cloud-free day. You can see that the ice is still very much intact and no signs of melting at this point. The Kuskokwim River at Sleepmute is also still intact. Very, very few signs of melting or moving. Earlier, I mentioned that we were concerned about an ice jam which was between Kalskag and Aniak. This is a satellite image taken from the middle of November where you can see that thick ice which is downstream of Lower Kalskag, which is going to be increasing the flood threat for Kalskag and Aniak. Skwentna, just a little bit west of Anchorage, is starting to see some signs of melt on the satellite image. And then last but not least, the Copper River at Glen Allen is starting to have a channel in the ice. So still, definitely behind schedule. So breakup is progressing, or at least it will be soon. We're waiting for the warmer temperatures. But in the meantime, please follow the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center on these links. There is the Alaska breakup map as well as the graphical breakup outlook. Thank you.